The night train home. It was nearly dusk when Henry boarded the night train. The air at the station held that particular stillness that only small towns seem to know, where even the wind moves slowly, and conversations happen in murmurs. He carried no suitcase, only a well-worn leather satchel slung over his shoulder and a folded newspaper under one arm. The porter smiled and nodded. "Evening, sir." Henry returned the nod with a soft smile and stepped into the dimly lit car. Inside, the train hummed softly, its rhythm already set. He chose a window seat facing west, where the last light of the day painted the sky in shades of gold and blue. As the train began to move, he leaned back, feeling the vibration beneath his feet, the familiar sway, the low metallic lullaby of wheels on tracks. It had been over 40 years since he last made this journey. The town he was heading toward, Willowbend, was where he'd been born, raised, and where he'd left behind the boy he once was. It wasn't regret that filled him now, nor longing, but something simpler, curiosity perhaps. A quiet desire to walk streets he used to know and see if they remembered him. The carriage was mostly empty, save for a woman sitting across the aisle, knitting a scarf in shades of sea green. Further down, an elderly couple dozed with their heads resting gently together, sharing the same rhythm of breath. The conductor passed by. "Ticket, sir." Henry handed it over. "All the way to Willowbend," he said. The conductor gave a small smile. "Long time since I heard someone heading there. Quiet little place these days." "I suppose it always was," Henry replied, and the conductor nodded before moving on. The town he was heading toward, Willowbend, was where he'd been born, raised, and where he'd left behind the boy he once was. It wasn't regret that filled him now, nor longing, but something simpler, curiosity perhaps. A quiet desire to walk streets he used to know and see if they remembered him. The carriage was mostly empty, save for a woman sitting across the aisle, knitting a scarf in shades of sea green. Further down, an elderly couple dozed with their heads resting gently together, sharing the same rhythm of breath. The conductor passed by. "Ticket, sir." Henry handed it over. "All the way to Willowbend," he said. The conductor gave a small smile. "Long time since I heard someone heading there. Quiet little place these days." "I suppose it always was," Henry replied, and the conductor nodded before moving on. Outside the window, fields slipped past like faded photographs. Silos and barns stood like monuments of memory, and here and there, clusters of trees lined gravel roads that disappeared into the countryside. Henry's thoughts wandered. He remembered the scent of his mother's cinnamon bread cooling by the window. He remembered the rusted swing set in the backyard, and how his little sister used to laugh until she hiccuped. He remembered sneaking out at 16 to watch fireflies dance near the old grain silo, with a girl whose name he hadn't spoken in decades. Funny how memory didn't fade like people said, it just grew quieter. The train slowed as it approached a small station, Maple Junction. A man boarded with a guitar case, nodding politely before taking a seat a few rows ahead. He didn't speak, just stared out the window like Henry, both men lost in separate stories. The woman knitting glanced up. "Going far?" she asked softly. "Back home," Henry said, more to himself than to her. She smiled gently. "Always a good thing to do, even if home's changed." He nodded, appreciating the truth in her words. As night settled, the sky turned the deep indigo of velvet, and stars began to appear, one by one. The train lights glowed golden, casting long shadows on the floor. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Then silence again, save for the steady rhythm of the train. Henry closed his eyes for a moment, and let the past come quietly. He saw his father's hands, rough and calloused from working the farm. Heard the crackle of the radio during Sunday dinners. Remembered his high school graduation, when his mother wept silently and handed him a wristwatch with the inscription "Make Time Count." He had. Or at least, he tried. Life had taken him far, New York first, then Chicago, a long stint in Arizona. He'd married, raised 2 sons, seen them off into the world. Lost his wife 5 autumns ago. He still spoke to her sometimes, especially on quiet nights like this. Around midnight, the train passed a creek that shimmered under moonlight. Henry remembered fishing there as a boy, catching more sticks than fish, and racing his best friend Danny back up the muddy trail. He wondered where Danny was now, if he too had made his way back home somehow. The air had cooled. Henry wrapped his coat tighter and pressed his forehead lightly against the glass. Willowbend was only 1 stop away. He wasn't sure what he'd find. The family house had long since been sold. The old school might be gone, replaced by something square and new. But he didn't come to reclaim anything. He came to remember. To sit on a bench beneath the oak tree by the church. To walk down Main Street where the bakery used to be. To smell the earth of his childhood and let it settle his bones. The woman with the knitting dozed off. The man with the guitar pulled out a notebook and scribbled something under the dim light. The train gently rocked them all, like an old lullaby sung by steel and time. Then the conductor's voice broke the quiet. Next stop, Willowbend. Henry stood, slowly, the joints in his knees reluctant but obedient. He slipped on his coat, adjusted his satchel, and stepped into the aisle. The train hissed as it slowed, steam rising in the cool night air. Outside, the small platform waited, aged, wooden, and wonderfully familiar. A single lantern cast a circle of warm light. There was no crowd, no welcome banner, just the gentle sound of crickets in the tall grass. But it was enough. Henry stepped off the train, boots touching the wooden planks with the weight of time. He looked around, took a deep breath, and smiled. He was home.